Welcome to the F1 News Zone, the show where we round up the biggest stories in Formula 1 right now. F1 is currently in the Mexican Grand Prix weekend, but what are the main headlines during the Day of the Day celebrations in Mexico City? This week we take a look at why Audi might get a bigger budget cap than other teams in 2026, why Lando Norris needs to be more aggressive in his 2024 title bid, and the on-track feud that Liam Lawson and Fernando Alonso already have after Austin. All that and a whole lot more in today's show. Let's dive in. The Perez retirement rumours aren't going away, despite Perez saying that he's unequivocally going to stay in Formula 1, driving for Red Bull in 2025. Dr. Helmut Marko stirring the pot once more, my friends. He has said the following. Let's see. When he was asked about Perez's retirement rumours. Full article on the F1 Chronicle as always, guys. This is not going to be a popular one in Mexico, I don't think, but let's see what's been said. Liam Lawson appears to be on the right track to becoming Max Verstappen's new teammate at Red Bull in 2025. Despite Sergio Perez's repeated denials, equally persistent rumours that the Mexican might announce his retirement from Formula 1 at his home race this weekend continue to swirl. It's a rumour, that team advisor Dr. Helmut Marko told Sky Deutschland ahead of this weekend's Mexican Grand Prix. He himself says there's no truth in it. Let's see. It is true that he has to improve his performance. Perez, 34, this year, signed a new Red Bull contract for 25 and 26, but it seems almost certain that the team has the ability to unilaterally cancel it. Verstappen is leading McLaren's Lando Norris by a sizable 57 points in the Drivers' Championship at present, but Red Bull is actually at serious risk of dropping behind Ferrari. He's not going to drop behind Fernando Alonso. He's safe of that. Ferrari and finishing third overall in the Constructors' Championship. Indeed, there's 8 points between them. If we get a repeat of what happened in the United States, in Mexico this weekend, Ferrari will overtake Red Bull into second place. Former F1 driver Ivan Capelli, I love hearing from this guy, blames it entirely on Perez. He doesn't mince his words. Ferrari has two drivers, the others only have one. He told La Repubblica. Perez is always far behind in the Red Bull, while Oscar Piastri with McLaren is yet to find good consistency. Oh, Pele. Oh, I think Piastri's pretty consistent, to be honest. I think that's very harsh. Backer Honda is pushing hard for Yuki Tsunoda to be a contender to replace Perez next year, but it seems clear that Red Bull is actually clearly grooming Liam Lawson for the role. They have their expectations of me, just as I do for myself, said Lawson, who replaced Daniel Ricciardo at RB as of the USGP and beyond. I am here to do a good job and I want to be in Formula 1 next year too. I have these few races and that is very important for me. I managed to do well in this race, but we still have to go through 5 important races ahead of us. Red Bull team boss Christian Horner said the 22-year-old New Zealander drove like a seasoned driver in Austin, and even Marko was full of praise. A really great 2024 debut, said the Austrian. That was already apparent in Q1, where he did the third fastest time. He was in control at all times and did great overtaking manoeuvres. Alonso would not agree, but I do. It shows that you have to put these youngsters in the cars and then it works out. He is definitely a man for the future, said the 81-year-old. Former F1 driver Christian Albers even thinks Lawson is already better than McLaren's Piastri. I mean, listen, Lawson's doing great, but Piastri's amazing. Let's not get this mixed up. He could become as good as him very, very early days, and it's unfair to compare them because you've got one in the top car and one in the midfield car. Yeah, he sold the follow-up into Viaplay. Yes, I think so. He has the natural talent that Piastri has, but I also think that Piastri fluctuates a bit more. I mean, you're basing it off of one wet race, so let's not get too carried away here. Lawson is definitely ready for it. If he's not next to Verstappen next year, I'll eat my shoe. And I mean that seriously. I think you'll be eating your shoe. But hey, crazier things have happened. He comes back after a long time, drives a circuit he doesn't know and does a fantastic job. He was often faster than Tsunoda straight away. I think he should already be there at Red Bull Racing instead of Perez. Dutch racing personality Tom Coronel sees Williams' debutant Franco Colapinto 21 in the same mould. You see this new generation driving in a different way, he said, a bit more attacking and a bit more driven. They understand the game. I don't think the older drivers like the Alonsos and the Hulkenbergs should keep driving forever. At a certain point, it is simply time to say that these other guys have a chance. However, Coronel does not necessarily think Lawson is completely ready to be Verstappen's teammate yet. They actually need someone who is breathing down Max's neck a bit, but you have to say that Perez isn't doing that right now either. I mean, that's potentially a bigger question really. Who would be breathing down Verstappen's neck in the same car? Piastri, Hamilton, Lando maybe, Leclerc, Sainz perhaps. There's not many on the grid that would be up there with Verstappen in my opinion, but I certainly do think that Lawson has a good chance of doing exactly that. Whether he'll do it from 25 or not, we'll have to see. There's still a long way to go. If Lawson, because at the end of the day, Lawson I think was about 11 seconds behind Perez. Perez starting much further up the grid in a much faster car. I think that if, Lawson keeps performing like this, getting close to Sergio Perez in the so-called senior team, well, they're definitely the senior team, and in the fastest car, or one of the fastest cars, or at least the fastest car that has been throughout this season, really, in terms of the driver that's on top in the Drivers' Championship. Obviously, in terms of pace right now, it's not the fastest. It seems like it's Ferrari, but next week could be McLaren. It switches around all the time depending on the track. But yeah, he's done very well. I feel like we need to temper our expectations just a little bit. Let's not put Lawson under too much pressure, but he was seriously impressive. He was really, really impressive during the United States Grand Prix, and I absolutely think he's within a shot of driving for Red Bull Racing next year. Do I want to see that? Yes and no. I want to see it in the sense I think he'd have a chance of being closer to Verstappen. It's certainly more exciting than just keeping Perez, but I also think there's a decent chance he could destroy his career. We've seen how Red Bull does this. Perez, he was brought into Red Bull, he was the hottest thing around, really, that people were, saying, praising Red Bull for saving Perez's career, he won a race in 2020, and it seemed like he wasn't going to get a seat on the grid for 2021, but there he is. And now he's doing pretty terrible. Who did he replace? He replaced Alex Albon, who was doing great at Toro Rosso. Then he went to Red Bull, did pretty terrible. Who did Albon replace? Pierre Gasly, who was doing really well at Toro Rosso. Then he went to Red Bull and he was terrible. Do you see a pattern here? This could easily be Lawson next, because at the end of the day, Perez has proven that he's a very talented driver in a midfield car. Albon has proven that he's a very talented driver in a midfield car. Gasly has proven that he's a very talented driver in a midfield car. Lawson's doing the same, so I have no doubt that there is a definite possibility that Lawson might be chewed up by the Red Bull meat grinder if he goes there. But what do you guys think? Do you think Lawson is going to be driving for Red Bull Racing next year? Do you think he should replace Perez? Do you think he will replace Perez? Let us know in the comments below. So, interesting piece here on the F1Chronicle.com in the build-up to the Mexican Grand Prix weekend. There's obviously a lot of noise around Lando Norris at the moment, particularly because there's an appeal currently going on, or a potential appeal from McLaren, and that hearing is scheduled to happen later today as I record this on Friday ahead of first practice. The actual hearing will be between first and second practice, I believe, and there's another separate video on that if you want to check out the finer details of it. But yeah, interesting piece here about Lando Norris and his mentality and his approach to races. Some are saying that he needs to up his aggression to continue to push for the title this year. A title that in truth may well already be out of his grasp, but let's have a look at what's being said here. Full article on the F1Chronicle.com as always, guys, you know how we do on here. So, two former F1 drivers think that Lando Norris needs to up his aggression if he wants to be the 2024 champion. Amid talk about pro-Red Bull bias, inconsistent stewards, Max Verstappen's racing style, and track limits, McLaren said last Sunday in Austin that it would not protest Norris's controversial penalty for his on-track run-in with Verstappen. McLaren's fury with the penalty, however, was backed by many F1 insiders. The penalty was inexplicable, former F1 driver Jean Alesi told Corriere della Sera. Max avoids turning in at the moment which he is overtaken. It is he who takes the McLaren off track. Where did the Englishman take advantage? It is unknown, added the Frenchman. The advantage was with Max's extreme defence, which was rewarded. It's a legitimate viewpoint in my opinion, that I don't disagree with it. The key really has been the fact that Lando ended up passing off of track. I think that was the thing, and I think Max Verstappen was very, very wily, to say the least. He was a very, very wily Red Bull during that race. He knew exactly what he was doing, and he did it to perfection, and it paid off for him. But whether it was dirty or not, I'm going to let you guys find that out in the comments if you want. See if you agree with Jean Alesi on that one. Perhaps spurred on by this type of analysis, McLaren hit reverse gear in Mexico by accidentally asking the FIA to take another look at Norris's penalty, which blew out his points deficit to Verstappen to 57 points with 5 races to go. He's essentially over 2 races ahead, so, you know, he's 2/5 of the way there, if you know what I mean already. The right of review will take place in Mexico on Friday, later today. Former F1 driver Ralf Schumacher, however, thinks Norris should have been more assertive in his wheel-to-wheel action with Verstappen and in general. If Lando wants to hold his own against Verstappen, he needs to be a bit more aggressive, he said. Anything other than that won't work against Max. Lando's start in Austin was actually great, but when he braked too hesitantly into turn 1, he was probably afraid that he would mess up the apex. That's one point that he urgently needs to work on, that final decisiveness in a duel. I respectfully disagree a little bit with what Schumacher's saying there, just in the sense that I don't disagree he needs to be more aggressive at the start and he should have closed Max Verstappen off. That's blatantly obvious. But I would say is that, and he should know this given his own brother Michael's controversies over the years, Max Verstappen doesn't need to win these races. If Lando Norris is very aggressive and they crash, it benefits Max Verstappen because neither of them gain any points, they stay the same. So I would say that Lando needs to be a bit circumspect about passing Max Verstappen, because we know from title fights in the past, and indeed this title fight as well, where the two have come to blows, Max Verstappen has no reservations about using his car as a weapon to end up taking other drivers off the track. That's a fact, whether you're a Max Verstappen fan or not. He has done that several times in the past. I'm not saying he'd do it again, but come on, he'd do it again if he had to. He's shown that much this season. Lando's starting... Oh, sorry, I've already read that. Another ex-F1 driver, Christian Klein, told Service TV, I don't understand Norris. He has nothing to lose with a big... Oh no, he's got everything to lose. Disagree there. With a big points gap to Verstappen. If he wins the title by going all out, he will be the big hero. But nobody will blame him if he doesn't win against the best driver of the moment. When asked if he's lacking aggression, Norris was typically honest and self-critical. It's a difficult question and much more complicated than just saying, yes, do I need to change anything? Yes, is everything I do wrong? No. As for all the paddock controversy regarding Norris's Austin penalty, Verstappen thinks it's actually him who is the victim of bias in the British press at least. Okay. I have the wrong passport, said the Dutchman. Don't get me wrong, I'm very happy with my passport, but in this respect it would help to have a different one. Mercedes' George Russell, a British driver, was also critical of Verstappen's racing tactics against Norris in Austin. I don't think he should worry too much about other people, Verstappen hit back. Focus on yourself, focus on your life, enjoy your life, don't always think about racing. If you think fighting for the title, you have to perform at the top of your ability in every race. I always try to get the maximum result. That is what I'm here for after all, said the triple world champion. Interesting points. I mean, this is the thing, guys. I mean, I'm willing to take some advice basically from you guys on if you're from another country or you follow the media in another country, because for me personally, I don't pay attention too much to Sky. I don't really watch Sky that often aside from the race itself, but there's definitely been some accusations at least of British bias in that kind of media for a long time. Whether the international press is the same, I don't know. I don't think this is I mean personally for me, I don't think Verstappen is particularly a victim of the press too much. I would say that Norris isn't exactly squeaky clean either. I mean, the thing with the British media is, and again, I'm not going to get into this too much because, you know, I've already had a little bit of a minor rant, I would say, about what Sergio Perez said, and now I actually agreed with his point about there being an agenda against him. You could definitely argue that there is an agenda against Max Verstappen from some circles of the press, particularly those from the UK. I mean, that is definitely an argument to have had. Whether that's an argument I agree with or not, I don't know. I don't. Again, it's case by case. You know, I really think Verstappen makes a rod for his own back sometimes with his conduct on track. Simple as that. There's sometimes when he's definitely hard done by. I mean, the Sweargate thing. What the hell? Why? And why is the guy getting punished for that? That's one of the most dumb penalties I have ever seen in the history of Formula 1. And this is Formula 1 we're talking about here. F1's got an absolute rap sheet when it comes to these terrible penalties without any points whatsoever. And so that's definitely up there. So what do you guys think? Does Verstappen get beat on too much by the press? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And does Lando Norris need to up the aggression to win the title? I think he does at the start. I would say that. His starts have been very, very dodgy throughout the entire year. Whether it's poor getting off the line or poor into turn 1. It's very rare that I think he might still be the only guy to never gain a place into turn 1. Started from pole, admittedly, but still. It's not a good track record to have, really. He's not always started from pole position. So Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, guys. So, some interesting news that's kind of gone under the radar a bit this weekend is around Audi and their changes that they're going to be allowed to kind of implement when it comes to their budget, for the budget cap in Formula 1. Now, I've obviously had a lot of controversy this weekend in the United States Grand Prix, not only between Red Bull and McLaren off the track because of the Red Bull T-tray, but also on track as well because of the incident between Lando Norris and Max Verstappen. I've got videos on all of them already, but something that kind of slipped under the radar was about Audi, about how they're going to be allowed to spend more than other teams in 2026 when they become a works manufacturer, when they fully take over the Sauber team. So let's have a look at this, guys. Interesting article here on the F1Chronicle.com as always. Audi will be allowed to spend more under Formula 1's budget cap provisions from 2026. Bosses at the Sauber team, now 100% owned by Audi ahead of the start of the German carmaker's official F1 project from 2026, have urged that they should be able to be permitted to spend more because of higher wage bills in Switzerland. Interesting. The exact increase is not yet known, but Automotor und Sport said wages in Switzerland, where Sauber's Heinville factory is located, are generally about 30% higher than that in Britain. Predictably, rival F1 teams are reportedly unhappy with the idea of a special treatment for Audi, but they are powerless to block the move because of the new Concord agreement for 2026 is yet to be agreed or signed. According to the FIA's single-seater boss Nicholas Tombashis, the fact that the governing body currently has full freedom to help out Audi is good news. Otherwise, it would be like trying to form a democracy out of 9 wolves and 1 sheep, he smiled. Welcome to the piranha tank, as Eddie Jordan used to say. However, Ferrari boss Fred Vasseur predicts that other teams will now be lining up for special dispensation. That would lead to endless discussions, he said. Right, so interesting stuff there. So the reason why they are comparing it to the UK is because the lion's share of the cars of the teams are based in what is known as Motorsport Valley or the UK. I think 6 out of the 10 teams are based in Motorsport Valley, and the exception to that in the UK is McLaren, who are based down in Woking in Surrey, but that is still in the UK. So the majority of the teams are based there. Even teams like Alpine that are partly based in France because their engine manufacturing for now are primarily based in the UK in terms of where they build the cars. So that's quite a few. So you've got Red Bull, McLaren, Alpine, who else you've got? You've got Mercedes. Even these teams that race under a foreign flag, they are based in the UK. Now the exceptions to that are of course Ferrari, who are based in Italy, RB are also based in Italy, and Sauber, who will become Audi, are based in Switzerland. Now, this is an interesting move. It's a smart move by Audi to try this. You know, at the end of the day, always ask the question, try and get any advantage you can. That's Formula 1. But them being based in Switzerland is not a new thing. They've been based in Switzerland forever. Sauber came into Formula 1 in the early 1990s, and to my knowledge they have always been based in Switzerland. They've certainly always raced under the Swiss flag when they've been an independent manufacturer. The exception to that being of course when they were under BMW, and I believe they raced under the German flag, could be wrong there, but they were still based in Heinville in Switzerland during that time. So I think it's one of them where it's like, well, it's already happened, you know, we've already been competing with that, and I think that might be a reason why Sauber have potentially struggled for so long. Makes you think, doesn't it? Because they've not been a true midfield team really since, 2012 when they had Perez and when they were getting podiums. And they've had some flashes underneath, you know, the likes of Kimi Raikkonen driving for them. In truth, that those Alfa Romeo days were not good for them. So it's an interesting one for sure. I don't know. I mean, like they say, Fred Vasseur has kind of gone with that, because it's like, well, you're opening the can of worms with that, because wages in the United States are higher than in the UK. So then are you giving Haas a bit of an advantage for that Haas have bases in Italy and in the UK? So then what happens with that? Should they get a little bit of a boost because of that? You're opening a can of worms. And then do Ferrari, do they get a smaller budget cap because wages in Italy are less than the UK? I don't know if they are, by the way, I'm just guessing, but let's just say they are. Do Ferrari get a smaller budget cap because of that? No, that shouldn't be the case, you know. So I don't know if this is going to go through. I'd be surprised if it does. What is happening though, and we've already covered this before in the F1 Chronicle, what is happening is that this Concord agreement is being discussed and the budget cap is going to increase, and it's going to increase in line with general kind of inflation since it was first implemented in, I want to say 2021 was the first season it was there. I could be wrong, but it's been pretty recent. But even in that time, inflation's gone up. As we all know, guys, everybody knows that inflation has gone up. So yeah, they're gonna adjust it to kind of compensate for that. So teams, even though they'll be allowed to spend more, in real terms, it's not a big difference. But could Sauber, who's going to become Audi, get an advantage with that? I want to hear your guys' thoughts. Do you think it's fair? Do you think it's going to happen? I don't think it's going to happen. I'll be surprised. I really would be. And like I said, I think it's just opening a can of worms there at that point, because you've got teams that, even though they're based in the UK, have employees who are based elsewhere. Mercedes have some guys in Germany with the engine thing. You know, Haas have bases in the UK and also Italy as well, in addition to the United States. So I think you're opening a can of worms. But it's an interesting discussion point. I want to hear your thoughts in the comments below as always. So something that might have escaped your attention this week during the United States Grand Prix is the feud between Fernando Alonso and Liam Lawson. Lawson's been back in Formula 1 for just one weekend, and already there's been a bit of an incident involving him. Now, this is not going to be a criticism of either of the drivers, really. This is just going to be a rundown of what is going on here, because this might have missed you. I mean, to be honest with you, I heard the radio from Alonso during the sprint race calling the AlphaTauri, the RB, an idiot over the radio, and I'm like, what's going on there? What's happened there? But that was just the start of it, really. And I've already done a video about Liam Lawson this weekend. It's gone down really well, surprisingly, in New Zealand. Not really surprising, that's a joke. But yeah, just going over how impressive his drive was during the Grand Prix. But one man who won't have been impressed, and has loads of people have commented saying as much as well on the video on YouTube. One guy that will not be really thanking him this weekend is Fernando Alonso. He will not be impressed with what Liam Lawson did, and I'm sure he's not going to be bitter at all at him getting points and Alonso getting absolutely nothing from this weekend. But let's go through what's happening here. So what is the feud? How did it happen? Where do we go from here? Let's get into this. So basically this all started during the sprint race on Saturday in Austin. Liam Lawson dived down the inside of Alonso into turn 11, which is the left-hander before the main back straight. Some people might call it the hairpin, really. That's what people were referring to it as. And going down that straight is the main overtaking opportunity. And basically Lawson, in Alonso's eyes, was rather aggressive with that. The Aston Martin went off the track, and this is something we've seen a lot, particularly into turn 12, the following corner. Obviously Verstappen and Norris, that was another one as well. Already done a video going over that incident and the penalty and everything. Check that out if you haven't already. But yeah, Alonso basically tried to go down the inside, going to turn 12 at the end of the back straight, but Lawson blocked him basically. He stopped him from trying to overtake, which is his right to do. I haven't seen the onboard yet, but the stewards didn't take any action, and the stewards took a lot of action about overtaking manoeuvres really throughout the weekend. So if it was a bad one, then it probably would have been picked up really. And plus it's the first lap as well. Drivers generally get a bit of leniency on the first lap because there's a lot of overtakes, a lot of jockeying for position, you know, and very much the tension is turned up when it comes to that. But that didn't impress Alonso. Alonso was not very happy about that, and that's when his message came over the radio. Now, some people are saying that Alonso was probably a bit angered because it kind of triggered some memories when it came to 2022 when him and Lance Stroll, who were not teammates at the time, Alonso, I believe at that time, was driving for Alpine, could be wrong with that. But yeah, actually no, they were teammates during that time, sorry, my apologies. But yeah, they had a really nasty crash in 22. And maybe there's some memories of that. Maybe, I mean, a bit different really, I'd say. A very different incident, although they were in similar places on the track, there is that. But Alonso said this on the incident. He said, and I quote, "On the straight, I think we nearly crashed, like I did with Lance 2 years ago, at 300 kilometers an hour or something. And then the way he squeezed out of the corner to the track limits itself in lap 1 of 19, which was obviously the sprint race, a shortened race there." Now, Alonso said that he, quote, didn't want to make a big thing of it, but it seems like he's kind of taken it personally and made a big thing of it, to be honest. He's not particularly, I mean, he called him an idiot over the radio, which is quite a tough one, really. And I think as well, it probably annoyed Alonso a little bit more as well, because they ended up both losing a position to Esteban Ocon. So Lawson didn't even gain a position, and Alonso ended up losing 2, which again probably angered him a bit more, as you would expect, to be fair. After that, they didn't clash again. Alonso finished all the way down in 18th in the sprint, something like that. Really bad day. Really bad weekend for Aston Martin. And I feel like that as well is part of the reason for Alonso's anger, really, because they were shocking. Aston Martin were absolutely awful this weekend just gone in Austin. You know, Lance Stroll and Fernando Alonso were absolutely nowhere. The car just had no pace whatsoever. It was never looking like it was going to get points in either event. So I feel like that, again, that rage has been channeled into Lawson. He's just basically trying to use Lawson as a bit of a punching man. Just like, oh, well, you know, could have got points if it wasn't for that Lawson kid. But in reality, that was never going to happen. Even when you've got a double world champion in that car, you really cannot rescue things even then. Aston Martin are going to be hoping things improve with Adrian Newey for 2025, because right now they are looking really bad. But what has Lawson said on this? Because he has to have responded to this, surely. Well, he has really, and he kind of went along with what I just said really there. He said, and I quote, "He had a pretty horrible race, so I can understand why he's upset. But you know, if I did anything wrong, I would have got a penalty." So yeah, which is kind of what my stance is really with that. If he did something, again, they're going to release I'm recording this on Tuesday morning. Formula One's going to release like the top 10 on boards or whatever from the weekend in Austin. I imagine there'll be some Lawson and Alonso action in there somewhere. So I'll see the onboard then and I'll fully judge. But to be honest, from what I can tell, if there was any question about it, because I don't think it was even investigated. Again, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but I don't remember seeing an investigation about it from the stewards. If there was any kind of shenanigans going on, then it would have come up in that. There would have been at least an investigation, or some sort of like stewards have noted the incident between car 13, car 14, or whatever numbers they are these days. But like I said, Alonso, you know, he said they didn't want to make a big deal of it, but he kind of made a big deal of it during qualifying as well after that, because obviously we had the sprint race, then we had the qualifying. Alonso overtook the RB of Lawson coming out of the pit lane, which again, you know, you're allowed to do, but he was very aggressive when he was doing it. And Alonso said on the incident, what happened in qualifying? Well, because I had the scrub set of tyres, so I was not really into a time lapse, so I didn't want to lose more time. And I think it didn't change too much for him, meaning Lawson. But yeah, today in the sprint, I think, yeah, we fought very hard, in my opinion, for 16th, 17th, but nothing we can do. Again, a bit disparaging comments, really, being like, oh, it's only 16th. Well, he did beat you, mate. He did finish ahead of you. And then Lawson said this, and he also said, I don't want to make a rivalry out of this, but later on he said he would screw me, and I guess he kept his word. I don't know. He was really upset. I'm not sure why. We're racing for P16. I don't know why he was so upset. It is what it is. Hopefully he can get over it and we can move forward. That sounds like a you problem, mate. When asked what he discussed with Lawson in their chat after the sprint race, Alonso also said, that's between us. So he's not saying he didn't say it. Lawson said he would screw me comment was put to Alonso as well as in a question. He said, no, not really. Everyone is tracked and is behaving as he wants, and for me, today it was unnecessary. Everyone can have different opinions. I'm okay with that. You know, it's 24 races, so you meet somewhere in the journey, and they met in the first weekend twice. And if you'll notice as well, if you actually go back and watch the race, when Lawson overtook Alonso during the Grand Prix race on Sunday, they were really, really going at it. I mean, again, I noticed it at the time, but I didn't really connect the dots. Alonso was defending really aggressively, and within the bounds of, you know, rules and everything. I'm not accusing him of doing anything wrong, but he defended that position for all it was worth. He did everything he could, and Lawson made a really late lunge as well. I mean, it was fantastic racing. I love to see it, but you could tell there's a bit of needle in it between them two. They don't get on already. So yeah, we've got 5 races remaining in this season. I think there's going to be some sort of Alonso and Lawson battle at some point. And then we've also got next season too. Presumably Lawson's going to be in the RB, or at least in Formula 1 next season as well. And Alonso's going to be in the Aston Martin too. So yeah, that's kind of the rundown of what's going on, why there's a feud between the two of them. Basically, a difference of opinions really, right on track battling, and Alonso really seeming to take it personally. But that's what's happened, guys.